Welcome to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. For the next hour, you'll hear proven methods for how to live the multiple income streams dream. Ryan is passionate about helping others discover their gifts and start their own business. He's published 5 books, and his courses and group coaching programs have changed the lives of thousands of students all over the world. Ryan's books include Private Label, The Easy Way, Finding Your Grace Place, and his latest, Streams of Income. And now, here's your host, Ryan Rieger.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Streams of Income radio show. I'm your host, Ryan Rieger, and today we have my good friend and returning guest, Vincent Puglisi of Total Life Freedom. Vincent has a fascinating story. He used to be a sports photographer, and now he helps people achieve total life freedom through business. He's got a new membership. It's only $9 a month, guys. Get into that if you have any interest in turning a passion or whatever. You may think it's so random. It's so niche-y. It's like there may be only 5,000 people in the world that even care about this. Vincent will show you that it's possible to turn that into an income that can free you up. He talks about his cousin who is a New York Jets fan and turned that passion for the New York Jets into a serious business. This episode is so full of really good nuggets. We talked about content and connections, of how Vincent's primary job right now is to create content through his podcast, through his mastermind group, through this new membership, and then creating connections. Those are his 2 main jobs. And he said that anybody in business, that's what they should be working on doing. And you should outsource the rest or not do the rest, and have other people come alongside you, build that team. But your primary thing is content and connections. And what's powerful about this is he talks about what kind of life do you want? Let's build a business around the life that you want versus trying to fit your life into your business. So this episode is so full of really good stuff. Go to totallifefreedom.com, totallifefreedom.com. There'll be a link in the show notes below here. If you're interested in jumping into his membership, I highly encourage you check that out. At least watch that video that's on his page there. It's so good. Here's my interview with my friend Vincent. Vincent, welcome back to Streams of Income. So glad to have you.
Thrilled to be back, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks. And right before we were hitting record, we were talking about your schedule. I asked you what your we talked about the weather, and it's 77 and gorgeous in Florida. Right 78.
Now? Yeah.
And today's your busy day, but for most people, like, tell me about what your schedule was today, because busy for you, that's a lot of calls, but for most people, like, that's a light day.
Yeah. Tuesdays, I need a nap.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It's Tuesday morning, I have a mastermind. So we have an elite mastermind that we run in the morning, and then we have an online community. That's the second level to that I run a call on at noon.
Okay.
And then I generally do a podcast interview after that.
Yeah.
That's my
That's like 5 or 6 hours of being
4 hours.
4 hours. That is,
4
I mean,
hours.
that might sound like not very much to a lot of people, but if that's back to back to back calls, that mentally taxing.
You know, I've done hard work before. So my old me would get mad at my new me for saying it.
Yeah.
But I do kind of get a little Zoom for 4 hours. And the thing is, it's not like you're on, like, this is easier. It's just you and I, and we're talking.
Sure.
But when you're running a mastermind or you're running a community, like, I want to be fully involved. I want to be scanning the call to see who's thinking this, who's leaning in.
Right.
I want to be very engaged, and I want to be able to call on people not when they expect it. So I don't do anything where it's like, let's run through. So I'm at the bottom of the screen and I go, okay, well, he's not going to get to me till 45. So I'm going to kind of be on my phone. You never know when I'm going to ask you a question, because I want everybody to be fully engaged.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'll leave there and I will be kind of mentally exhausted, but
sure,
it's not digging ditches. So I'm not going to complain.
That's right. How does all this compare to? I want to get your schedule, because it was fascinating that you said that you work really hard on Tuesday and you got most of the rest of the week to do whatever you want. But how does this compare to snapping pictures and that schedule you had?
Oh, it's night and day. Like, so I was. For those that don't know, I was a.
Let's go into your story too. Yeah, go back. Let's go back to that. Yeah,
this world that I'm in now is nothing. My friends from that, I'll give you a funny story. My friend John's the lead photographer for the World Wrestling, WWE now, right? Used to be WWF. And they were in town for, I don't know if it was WrestleMania. So he's like, come on down, and had dinner a couple nights, and we're walking. and going to get dinner. And one of the guys we used to shoot with back, because I shot back in the Attitude Era, back when Stone Cold Steve Austin and all that type of stuff. So very tight knit group. So they were asking about me, like, how's he doing? Because I'm not in that world anymore. And John was like, he's like, I don't even know what he does. He's talking about me right now. Right?
Yeah.
He could, and it's not like he asked me, can you explain it? You know, the online world of entrepreneurship and teaching and masterminds, like to them, you might as well be speaking a different language.
Yes, that's so
it's
true.
Nothing that they're used to. So it was a slow transition, maybe about 6 years ago into this. But the world I used to be was, you know, a news and sports and you know, a journalist, photographer. And that's so this world and that world, the only thing the same is kind of the sky, right? And trees. But besides that, I don't recognize, those worlds don't recognize one another.
Wow. Was that like, I mean, how many hours of work a week did you work in that job?
Oh, it was pretty consistent. Okay. It was, you know, depending if you're freelancing. If I'm freelancing, it's when the phone rings. You know, if I'm working for a newspaper, it's on a schedule. That was what I liked the least. I knew within a month of taking my first full-time job, everybody else was so excited. And I remember driving to lunch one day with everybody. It was lunch break at the newspaper, and we're going to this Mexican restaurant, and I'm in the back seat of the car. I was like, I can't get out. I felt like I was going to jail. I'm not even joking. I'm like, we're going to this restaurant. We're going to come back to the office. I've got to work till 7:00. And I'm like, I feel like a prisoner. And they were all just so excited because they got to do the work they loved. But I was a freelance photographer in New York before that. Not that I can make my own schedule, but when they called, I took the assignment or I didn't. Yeah. And there's days I can have, like, you know what, I'm not taking anything today. We're going, you know, here, we're going there. I'm doing something else. Once I was an employee, even though it was my dream job, because that's when I like shot the Super Bowl, like the president would come to town and I would be assigned for it, you know. Yeah. I got so many stories of like, I was working in New York and the Dalai Lama was in town for a day. No joke. You walk in and he goes, okay, so your assignment is you're going to spend the day with the Dalai Lama. I'm like, really? Okay. I spent the day with Dalai Lama. That would happen. Like got hired to photograph my wife and I both to fly out to Scottsdale to photograph Muhammad Ali's 70th birthday party. Wow. 4 days on Camelback Mountain with Lance Armstrong and that's wild. Just all these huge, you know, Andre Agassi and Steffi, all these, and we're just kind of mingling with them. And I kind of go, what in the world am I doing here? That's so cool. When you're doing, I don't think I've ever asked you this. When you're on those assignments, obviously you got to be professional, but can you kind of ask them questions? Can you interact with them very much? Or do you kind of have to do just mind your own business? It depends on the assignment. Like at a game, the way I would joke about it is like we're 6 inches apart, but a million miles away. I guess the best way I could say it. Yeah. I mean, Tom Brady is right next to me. Yeah. Like I could take his knees out if I want to, right? It was a really weird situation. You're like, if I was really a rabid fan, like I could change the outcome of this game right here, right? But at the same time, it's like, it's not like you go, hey, Tom, you know, right, where are we going to dinner tonight? It's like, no, they're in their own world. But there was very funny moments. Like I was shooting the Super Bowl, Tom Brady's first Super Bowl, actually. It was in New Orleans. And I'm on the sidelines. And I'm the Rams sideline. And they're about to kick off. Like, so this is my dream assignment. Grew up watching the Super Bowl. Now I'm on the side. London Fletcher from the Rams is walking right towards me. The picture I have shows 15 minutes, like the game's about to start. I mean, the excitement was crazy. You know, Paul McCartney just sung the national anthem. He's, you know, 15 yards behind me. Mariah Carey just came off the field from singing. They did two different anthems. Everything's going on, all the celebrities around you, and he's walking right towards me. And I'm shooting pictures of him. And now I notice he's coming even closer to me, but he's coming right towards me personally. Yeah. And he gets so close that I'm like, what's happening here? Comes right up to my camera, leans over and he goes, you're going to sell those pictures on eBay, aren't you? And he laughed and he grabbed his helmet, put it on and ran out to play in the Super Bowl. And I said, that was the coolest thing that's ever happened. I'm like, he's like just joking. And then you go out and play in front of millions and millions. So that would happen often. Like Antonio Brown, before he lost his mind, like I took a picture of him with somebody from the Broncos after a game and he comes up to me, puts his arm around me. He goes, hey, can I get your email address? And he goes, here's my email. Send me that picture. And the PR guy from the Steelers goes, no. Send me the picture. Like he didn't want me having Antonio's email address, but he was so clear, like, hey, you know. Yeah. So I wound up sending it to the PR guy, not emailing back and forth with Antonio Brown. He'd be so awesome because right now I'd be like, what's going on with you right now? You know, I'd have so many questions, but you'd have a lot of those interactions. Yeah. which were really fun and they make for great stories. But everybody goes, "What made you stop that?" And what I eventually kind of came to the conclusion was it was all for me. Like it was all for me in these stories.
Yeah.
Like I loved it. I loved going to dinner and telling these stories, but I kind of became like a cartoon character or a clown in some ways where people wanted to hang out with me or know me because they wanted to hear these stories and they wanted to tell their friend that my friend's traveling to wherever for the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But then they would go to talk to somebody else about a real conversation. And I'd be left there like, what am I, just like the entertainment? Like that's what it felt like. I'm the entertainment to tell these stories. Because I remember I shot the Colts Patriots in Foxborough for a championship game, and the Colts lost. It was the Manning Brady era.
Yeah.
And so I don't go to the Super Bowl. I think the Super Bowl is going to be in Houston that year. And I come back and our friends have a big party. And so I'm going, my wife and I would go to the Super Bowl party, and we're watching, it was the Panthers versus the Patriots. And my friend Sean looking at me, and I'm like, what are you looking at? He goes, I just find it bizarre that we were watching the game here last week and we were watching you on TV and you could have been at the Super Bowl. He was like staring at me. I'm like, this is really weird because it's like sports fans. I guess I got into a world that they've never understood how to get into. And I got in there and people found that fascinating. But after a while, it got kind of like, is this who I am?
Yeah.
Is this the best that I've got? Is this all that I'm ever going to deliver to the world? So I had a real hard year or two contemplating that. Do I leave this behind? So I got into a mastermind. It was my first experience with masterminds about 7-8 years ago. And that's all they wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get into the world that I'm in now.
Yes.
Helping people create a business to create a life of freedom. But they were like, you got to teach this stuff, the photography stuff. And I'm like, I'm bored out of my mind. I don't want to teach photography. I don't want to teach F stuff. I don't want to teach any of that stuff. Wound up doing an online course with a guy named Kyle Schultz. They did really well. But even he said to me, he goes, I don't think this is your passion. It wasn't. It wasn't to teach parents how to take better pictures of their kids. It was good for money. Sure. So I had to really have one of those moments where like, what are you going to do here? Are you going to really go after what you want, or are you going to go with the easy thing that people like? Good. So that was really challenging.
Good. Now that you're past that a little bit, I love just hypothetical. Like if you actually could go, like we're recording this 2 days after the Super Bowl. Yeah. If you could have gone to the Super Bowl this year and you're not committing yourself to do this for the next 10 years, but just like here, like do freelancing again, where they call you and you get to totally decide if you want to do it or not. Would you ever go back? Do you miss part of that at all? Like being
without a doubt. I would do that in a heartbeat. Okay. The problem is to get to the Super Bowl, it's not the same level, but it's almost like being a player. You need to put in the reps. Yeah. You don't just get a call to go to the Super Bowl. This is
why it's totally hypothetical. If they called you and you could go do that, just a one event here and there, and it's
absolutely
the Super Bowls and the fun events that you want to do. Okay.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Just curious.
100%. Because I still have those moments. I'm watching it and I'm kind of like, I remember when that guy knocked me over. I remember being on the field as the confetti shooting down. I remember all of it.
That's awesome.
And just the moment really was, because when I went to be a sports photographer, I know that's not what we're talking about today, but when I went to do it, I was struggling. I was 22 years old. I had failed out of school. This was my dream. And I went to one of my mom's friends who was a photographer. He was a portrait photographer. And I said, I want to be a sports photographer. Like, that's my dream. And he said, forget it. I'm like, what do you mean forget it? He goes, everybody wants to do that. It's impossible to get into. You're better off doing what I'm doing, portraits and still life. And I'm like, rather, jump off a bridge than do portraits and still life. Like that's I'm not looking to be a photographer. I'm looking to have access to the world that I want to get to. That was my perspective. So 5-6 years later, when I went through everything and then I got the Super Bowl and I'm in New Orleans, I'll never forget, because my wife went with me. She was in the press box, and I'll never, ever forget walking through the tunnel and of the Superdome, and then walking. Then you following all the lines because it's just so wild backstage. Yeah, that was right after 9/11, so it was the heaviest security of any event I think in history. Like 4 checkpoints. It was crazy. Yeah. But I'll never forget walking onto the field like you're a player and seeing all the lights, the bright lights, and it looked brighter than normal. Maybe it wasn't, but it felt it. Yeah. And I'm on the field, and I remember thinking of that guy, and I said, I did it.
Yes.
And I don't really want to prove people wrong, but I wanted to prove him wrong.
I understand. And that's so cool.
to walk out. So yeah, that of course I would, and they'd have to give me the equipment. I haven't kept up with my equipment.
Sure.
They'd have to give me the equipment, but of course I would love it.
Is that one of those things that once you've done it before, it's like riding a bike, you've got it? Like you.
Oh yeah, I don't worry about the work side of it.
Yeah,
because you've shot hundreds or thousands of high school games and college games. Pros in some ways is easier because the athletes are better, but it's so much faster.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Which is harder. That part's harder. But when you get it, you get it unlike anything else.
Yeah. Are you able to enjoy? Sorry, this is totally not what we were here to talk about.
Oh, it's cool.
This is me just being a kid asking questions because I'm a sports fan. Are you able to enjoy the game at all, or is it totally just okay? I didn't think so.
No, I will call my friends. I'm like, what happened? I'm like, oh, Bettis ran for 138 yards. Did he really? I don't know. All I know is he's running at me, and I better get the pictures. Because you don't even know who scored the touchdown sometimes. Sometimes you get the shot and then you got to transmit it. Wow. And then you go, I think he's having a good game. You know the score because you got to keep attention to what's going on with the game, but I don't know the stats. And they go, oh, can you believe that penalty? I'm like, what penalty? I was on the other side of the field. I don't know.
You need somebody right beside you that's able to watch the game and tell you what's going on.
Yeah. And I probably should have maybe I had headphones in to listen to it, but then you can't hear the sounds.
Yeah.
Because you really want to know if there's like a 300-pound linebacker coming up from behind you is about to take you out because it happens. But if I have headphones in, I'm listening to a radio, you're going to get clobbered.
You're going to be in trouble. You'll be out for the game, out for the season. Oh, man. Okay. So you went from that, and I know you and your wife go into wedding photography?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So around the same time.
That's kind of got you into the business world, right? Where you like doing this as a business.
Yeah. Well, sports is amazing, but the pay sucks. Most people don't realize that. For us, it was a loss leader. It was the first business decision we made because we're going to start a wedding photography business. I'm doing sports freelance. The pay couldn't be any more different. But at the same time, we lived in Pittsburgh when we had moved from Indiana to Pittsburgh. And what happened was, and it was a really good business move that I didn't think about at the moment. I got a 2-page spread in Sports Illustrated, which was my dream to ever get. And it was Sidney Crosby from the Penguins. He got his teeth knocked out in a game, and then he came back and became the best again. Well, I had a picture that Sports Illustrated loved, and they used it. 2-page spread, which was a dream. So I had it in like a briefcase where I kept our wedding albums.
Yeah.
So I would go for these wedding meetings to meet with a client, and I take out the album, and we're talking and showing, and then you can see like the mom, like the dad's there and the bride's there, and they're all excited. So it's kind of like, oh, they're choosing between 3 and 4 photographers. And then I said, I remember, I pulled up like, oh, are you guys Penguins fans? I'm like, oh, of course, everybody's in Pittsburgh. So I open it up and I show them the picture, and they were like, you shot that? And I said, yeah. And the dad says to the bride, she goes, hire him. And awesome. She was like, well, this is who we wanted to hire. We wanted to convince you. He goes, no. Literally wrote the check right there, which never happens. The next one happens again. So now I'm kind of like, this is kind of a little bit of a ploy. Let's do it again. Let's keep the thing underneath, pull it out again, during a meeting. And the dad says, literally, no joke, well, if you're good enough for the Penguins, you're good enough for my daughter. And I said, I got an advantage here that the other photographers don't have.
Oh my goodness. So every meeting, you got to make sure won't meet with you unless your dad's there.
That's right. Or if the mom's a hockey fan. But so that the sports, even on the website,
so cool.
People, the other photographers had all these glowy wedding portraits, and we had real photojournalism along with, here's me shooting LeBron James, here's me shooting Tom Brady, and anybody that was a sports fan chose us. And a lot of times,
so cool.
In wedding photography, you can't get the husband on board. It's the bride's decision. Well, when it came to us, the husband got on board because they wanted to talk to me about sports. So we started. So, and no joke, there was one wedding, the bride's walking down the aisle, and Elizabeth's like, it was ridiculous because Elizabeth was with the brides. I was with the groom up at the front of the altar.
Yeah.
And she said, as they were walking down the aisle, the bride said to the dad, can you believe I'm going to walk down the aisle and he's going to take pictures with the same camera that he shot Sidney Crosby with? That was what she said. Right before she went down the aisle. I said, these people take sports a little too seriously, but I'll take it. That's
awesome. When you're a freelance photographer, do you own the rights to those pictures? Like, can you sell them on eBay?
No.
Okay.
No. When you shoot for Getty or the different magazines, they own the copyright to that. So NFL, they have a lockdown on that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay.
Yeah. I can give them away, but I can't sell them.
Wow. All right. So we've covered your hit. I just love, I always enjoy talking to you about your past because I'm also a sports fan, but obviously that's not what you want to talk about, and that's not what you're doing now. And you're
Obviously, you can tell I
helping
don't
way more
mind, right?
people with what you're doing now than what you were doing then. So we were talking about your schedule. So like you tell me about you said before we hit record that you're going to work today and then you got most of the rest of the week off to do what you want.
Yeah.
What's that like? What do you do? I know you got kiddos and you guys
we have 3
busy
kids.
Homeschooling.
Homeschool. Yeah. So the idea was when we first started, so our business is called Total Life Freedom. It's mastermind community in different levels, helping people build a business to create that life of freedom. So I better have it myself if I'm going to teach it. Right. But the idea initially was I want to create this to where I work on Mondays and Tuesdays. Before it was even a business, that was the idea. So often it's like, and I ask this question of my clients, people I work with, what kind of life do you want? I don't even ask what kind of business they want. I ask what kind of life they want. Because if I want a life where I'm going to travel, or I want a life where I want to live in, the coast of Florida, and I open up a brick and mortar shop in Fort Wayne, Indiana, well, I don't care how good your business is, you're not going to be happy because you're not doing what you want to be doing.
Yes.
And so often people build the business without thinking about building their life.
Or somebody who like is wants to have weekends off, but then goes into wedding photography.
Exactly. Yeah.
not gonna work.
What are you thinking? Like there's a fly in the ointment here. Like we have a problem here. You want weekends off, or you want to be with your kids, and you're building a business that goes against that. So the sooner you can get the financial freedom, even on the lowest form, which is, paying the bills, right? So I'll joke, I'm like, hey, generally $6,000 for a lot of people, great majority covers most of your bills.
Yeah.
If you could build a membership that you're required to work 2 hours a week and you can make $6,000 a month from it on a basic level, just the basic level, what could you do then?
Yes.
And they go, wait a second, it pays all my bills. It only takes a couple hours. Now I can write that book. Now I can build the network. I can do the connection. I can do all the things that are not in desperation to build what I really want to build. And you said that like with Amazon, a lot of people aren't always in Amazon because they love it, but it's a means to an end to get them to the next level. Yes. Well, I'm here like, okay, now how do we take that and create what you really want? So I'm always thinking about that. Even with ourselves, it's almost obsessive where it's like, okay, things are good, but I'm thinking, what do I want 3 years from now? What kind of life do I want? And what kind of work do I want to be doing? So that's the path that I like to go down. And so we created it that we would work on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then it shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. Awesome. And it's all about how do we optimize it. So I have 2 calls on Tuesday. If I do a podcast interview Tuesday, I have one other call that I'm not required to be on Thursday that we run for the mastermind for the community, but other people run it. And that's what I have on my schedule blocked off for the week.
So what does tomorrow look like for you? A Wednesday?
Well, call me tomorrow. I'll tell you. I don't know.
So you literally wake up with there's no certain plan. You don't have anything you have to do. Will you even like open up your email? Will you do any of that? Is it just kind of go with the flow, whatever?
It's hard. Like I can tell you specifically tomorrow, but it's not going to make sense in the realm of this conversation. Mm-hmm. But it comes down to sitting down and knowing this is the way I look at it. I want to live a life where I'm not doing anything urgent.
Yeah,
for the most part.
That's good. And
when you say, what do you need to get done this week? When people answer that, it's usually because it's urgent. Got to get these emails out. Got to work with this client. So in my community, I say, what do you have to do that is important but not urgent? Stephen Covey, 7 Habits stuff. Mm-hmm. Quadrant 2. If you read that book, that's where we want to live our life. Is quadrant 2. Important but not urgent. So we're not putting out fires. We're not scrambling around. We're not stressed out. We're doing things that is going to make next year better. Because I got everything I need today. Most people have everything they need today.
Yeah.
Even if you're not doing as well. Even when I was broke, I had everything I needed today.
Yeah.
So if you're good today, all that matters is 3 years from now. That's the way I look at it. So everything I do, relationships, how we handle money, how I build things, it's how is this going to make 3 years from now better? That's why when people say, how are you able to do all this stuff? Because I'm always doing the work for 3 years from today, not for today.
Yes. That's so good. What are those things to you that are in quadrant 2? What are those important but not urgent tasks that you do?
It's content and connection.
Yep.
That's all. It's content and connection, and then the business side of it, the sales side of it.
Yeah.
But most people neglect both of those. I've told you this. I use the idea of a confluence. We lived in Pittsburgh for 11 years. Pittsburgh is a confluence. It's two rivers that come together that form a third, more powerful river. And I was in Pitt. We were doing one of our retreats, and I'm like, this is a really great business analogy. Meaning, there's these two rivers. Like, so the third river doesn't just happen. It's not just there strong. It's there because these other two rivers. And so people get so confused with business sometimes. I got all these tech, got all this stuff. I'm like, no, it's really just, in my world, it's content and connection. If you do the right content the right way, and you build your network and your connections the right way, meaning not for short-term gain, for long-term gain. That's what separates me from relationships, is essentially a lack of integrity or a lack of long-term thinking in a relationship. I need this now. I'm going to shortchange something. I'm going to screw something up for my own benefits. That's where I separate, right? So connection and content, when each one is its own separate river that flows. I'm doing my weekly newsletter. I'm doing my podcast. I'm putting out free content. I'm putting out paid, all that type of stuff, consistently getting better at it, gaining attention that way. It takes a year, right? It takes time to build that stuff up. But any river, the Allegheny in Pittsburgh starts 80 miles upstream as a tiny little stream. Nobody would ever imagine that that's going to turn to a major city. But water keeps raining. The riverbed goes a little bit deeper. That's creating consistent content. Same thing with the connections. You're reaching out to people. You're connecting people together. You're doing it with character and integrity. You're doing it the right way. That when those two meet, right? That's when the third river, which is commerce, or cash. That's where the money happens.
Yeah.
I had a friend that was writing a book and just had this conversation recently. And he's like, I just want to write the book. I don't really want to do a blog. I don't really want to do content. He doesn't really reach out to people because he's just focused on writing the book. So I gave him the analogy of the three rivers. And I said, you're basically taking this book, you're putting it in the third river with no water running to it and expecting a boat to get there. How's anybody ever going to see this? You don't have any content. You don't have any connection. How are they ever going to get there? And he got that. He goes, man, you're right. He goes, and that's why so many books never get traction, why so many podcasts never get traction. They're not doing these things consistently. But when you get there, that's when those come together. It's called the point. Even in Pittsburgh, it's called the point. The funny thing about it, the analogy that I use, like the stadium analogy that we could talk about. But ironically, that's what the stadiums are in Pittsburgh. And so what I use is when you build these rivers to build that third river, which is where the money comes in, where the business is, that's also in Pittsburgh where they build the stadiums that have where all the people gather and there's tiers to it. Meaning they play one game. They're not confused with their product. Pittsburgh Steelers are not confused with their product. They're not trying to play cricket in Aliquippa. They're not doing racquetball in West Virginia. They play football on this one field. And if people can get this with business, what is the game that you play? I know clearly what the game is that I play. And now I realize I don't have to have one offer. I don't need to say, this is the price, right? The whole thing of like charge what you're worth. That doesn't make any sense to me. There's a client at every price point. And sports will show you that. You go to a football game and you can listen to it for free. They put content out for free. You can listen on the radio. You can pay a couple bucks and watch it on TV. Well, you get interested. You become a fan. They win you over. You go to a game. Go to the upper level. Cheap seats. Now you're in the stadium. Now you don't get the access of the people down below, but I've paid just to be in the stadium.
So for those listening, this is your equivalent of what we talk about in internet marketing funnel, which is the people at the top. They may be listening to your podcast. They're not paying anything to listen to that. They start to know, like, and trust you. Then they may, I'm going to buy Vincent's new book. Then now they're at the paid level, and that you want some of them, you want a lot of them to go down where they're paying higher price, but that takes time. But I just want people to know that this is just another way to look at this. And for sports fans, this is going to be a more fun way to look at this.
Well, because we all do it, right? If you're a sports fan, you've been through it. You've listened to the radio for 2 years, and then you go, that was kind of exciting. We'll have to go to a game. Then you go and you go, this is awesome. But I'm at the top of the stadium and down there, they're catching foul balls. Like, how much are those tickets? Well, that's about $50 more. Okay. Now I have a little more access, get a little closer. You catch a foul ball, but then you look down below and they go, wait a second, they're getting autographs. They're meeting players down there. How much is that? That's $100 more. Maybe for your birthday, special occasion. And then they look around, there's luxury bots. Oh, that's where the business people go.
Yeah.
And they spend big money because now they're doing business together. Oh, there's fantasy camp. That's 10 times as much. And you get to play with the Hall of Famers. And then you go through the concourse and they're selling all this different stuff. And I'm like, this is the most brilliant business model I've ever seen. Yeah. You write books and courses, that goes in the concourse. You have a membership, it's up here. You have coaching or access or live events. You just shape out your stadium. You know what game you play. You drive the traffic through the confluence there. And it's not that complicated, but it's not being taught enough to do it and to do it what I would say is the right way.
Yeah. And it's also not necessarily like people think you have to have, like for you, your message is total life freedom. It's not, you're at those lower levels that people are paying more for. It's usually just greater access to you. You're not having to come up with brand new, fresh content. You're probably teaching the same thing, or you should be. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can add different, you were talking about having a private podcast for certain people at a certain level, but it's the same content. You're giving them exclusive access, behind the scenes stuff. It might be a mastermind where they actually, like you do this, people get to come to your house.
Yes.
That costs more than me buying into your new membership, because that's greater access to you. And so people think you got to do all this. You have to do different things. It's just different access, same content.
The people that can get confused are the ones that feel like they have to do all this. I need multiple streams of income, which is a great thing and a terrible thing. Because some people say that's me investing in real estate here. That's me doing a service-based business over here. That's me taking something completely different for parenting and do it over here. That's why you're confused, and that's why you're overworked and burnt out.
Yeah.
Just imagine a sports team. So keep with the sports team. That's like, I'm going to build these little stadiums all over the state, and we're going to run our team ragged, trying to do different things for different people, and only a handful of people showing up in each place. Same thing.
Yeah.
Whereas no, this is where we play right here. And we might not have a big stadium to start or big audience, but if we keep playing this game and we keep broadcasting it, we keep doing well and get better. But like you said, we talk about, the new membership we just launched, low price thing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that comes from our mastermind. But in our mastermind, we spend 2 hours diving in individually. That's valuable to those people. But we can take nuggets of that, almost like a donut, right?
Yeah.
There's a donut.
The donut hole.
The donut hole. Well, it's you're going to throw it out. No, just glaze it and then sell that, which is more popular in some ways. So you have this content that you can repurpose in different ways for different levels of access.
I love that. That's brilliant. How many people do you think are missing these tiers, like people that are coaches, for example, that just have one stream of income? In order to scale that, they just have to book more people. Do you feel like a lot of people are missing the stadium analogy? They're only selling one level of the stadium.
Totally. And for a couple of different reasons. They're seeing one thing. I have somebody that talked to, he's like, built a $3,000 course and he's not selling the course. And I'm like banging my head against the wall. I'm like, did anybody ask for a $3,000 course? Did you do market research on it? Did you talk to people? No, they created it. Okay, well, I wish we would have talked earlier, because that was probably a story you'll tell later about a mistake you did, because technology gets outdated. You got to redo it. Nobody asked for a $3,000 course, but could you have taken that and turned it into a membership where it gets stripped out? Could you have turned it into a lower priced thing that maybe once a week you get a lesson for it? Maybe you could build a community around. There's so many tiers to it that could have been done.
Yes.
And they miss out on it for sure.
You said something earlier that was so powerful. I think it was before we hit record. If I pay your bills for a year, but you have to work, what do you do?
Yeah.
That's the question that you asked. So walk us through that and think about like the people that are coming into your membership. How do you get them started? What's that path that you help them design? I love your analogy. You're designing that life first. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Let's not pigeonhole your business into your life. Let's figure out first what you want your life to look like, and then let's find a business that matches that.
And that's why it's way more individual than, hey, just listen to this content and I'll help you. Well, you can help somebody brilliantly walk through an Amazon business, but what if that's not the life that I want to be doing?
Yeah.
If I want to be doing that, now Ryan's reputable, but it's like the whole analogy of like, don't climb the ladder on the wrong building. Don't put your ladder against the wrong. So what do you want? Like, talk to your spouse. What kind of life? Like, so we envisioned that. And the word that kept coming back to us, and that's why we built the business around it, was freedom. I didn't want to wake up to an alarm clock. We both know Dan Miller. Dan Miller's been a huge influence in my life. And he's like, I never wake up to an alarm clock. I wake up naturally and I do the work that I want to do. So for me, it's having conversations. It's one-on-one conversations. It's writing blog posts. It's writing books. It's recording. It's all the different things in terms of the content that I want to create. Again, confluence, content and connections. If I have 2 hours of great content creation one day and 2 hours of great conversations, by 11 o'clock in the morning, I don't need to do anything else.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, content's being created. Now let's put it out the right way. Connection and relationships have been built. Networks been built. Great conversations. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that connections and conversations for more content. I'm going to use that content that forms more relationships. It's like tributaries in a river. That's why that analogy works. By the time you get to what your product is, they've already asked you for it.
Yeah.
They've already told you what they want. Yeah. Now go create it. That's the way it's actually,
that's good.
Not that confusing when you see it that way. Okay. But most people don't have the conversations. So my days are spent, I got it from the book, The Prosperous Coach, one of my favorite books. If you want to be a great coach, fill your day with interesting conversations. But everybody says you can't scale that. No, you can't scale that, but you will have great network relationships. You have great friendships, and you will learn more from those conversations than listening to any course. They will tell you exactly what they're struggling with.
Yeah. If
you want to be a coach, answer their questions and get better at it. And then take that content and write about it. And then figure out a formula for it to teach it to sell that. And then build everything. You can create a stadium from almost any one of these things. And the idea of a micro niche or a custom niche, which is like, how do you take something really unique that you have within an industry and a price point, put it together like nobody else has done?
Yeah.
My second cousin's a huge New York Jets fan. I wrote about it in my book. And my cousin was so worried about him for years because all he wanted to do was watch New York Jets games and break it down. She's like, what about school? He didn't care about school. Well, I told her he's going to be just fine. He reminds me so much of me. Well, now at 21 years old, he started writing blog posts. He got so noticed because he's so good in his micro niche that New York media started noticing him and quoting him. That's awesome. One of the guys that started a membership for Jets fans asked him to come on as a partner because his analysis was unlike anybody else. Now he's a partner in Jets Extra, which is a membership. And then my cousin sent me a video last week. If anybody's in New York, WFAN is the biggest sports radio show station in New York. They did a 5-minute segment praising him as the best Jets coverage in New York, going back and forth. It was hysterical.
That's incredible.
That would have been $100,000 of advertising.
Yeah.
Right. To get that big of a spot. And all because he did something so unique that he loved. And he would do it for free anyway. So that's where that question comes from. If I paid your bills for a year, but you had to work, you're not sitting at the beach. You got to create exactly what you want to create with no excuse of time and money. What would it be? Like I said to you, 80% of the people that I ask tell me it's different than what they're doing, even still being in business for themselves. They would do it differently than what they're doing. And that tells me people aren't creating exactly what they aren't living the life or the business that they really want to do.
Yeah. I think a conversation with somebody like you would be helpful, because if I was that person with your cousin with the, I'm just a Jets fan, a massive Jets fan, and I want to break down numbers and all that, I wouldn't see the path forward for turning that into income. So for somebody that's listening who has a passion like that, maybe it's something just like sports or something that they don't see in their head how to turn that into a business. You and I could probably get on a call with and help them think through that. But what would it's the most fun tell them to do besides getting into your membership, which is what they need to do, because that's going to help them, imagine, open their eyes to what's possible. But take me back with your cousin several years ago to where, how would you coach him into turning that into an income? Like with your method of content and connections, what would you tell him to do if he had to rewind and start all over again to get where he is now?
Yeah, great question.
Those actual tasks.
Yeah, well, there has to be content creation. Has to be. now we're overrun with content, right? In this world right now, it's hard to. Somebody told me recently, it's like I feel like I'm screaming into a vacuum because there's so much noise. But there's not noise in micro niches. There's not noise in custom niches. He created his own, right? So he did something that others just did not do. So that's where it is. What is unique about the way that you would go about it? You could be a homeschool parent. You could be a yoga instructor. When you can figure out what it is that you're passionate about talking about, and you can do it, but it's not that general, right? John Lee Dumas was on a call with our mastermind one time, and he explained it this way, which I loved. He goes, "There's a million yoga podcasts, but then you have the pregnant yoga person, right? Okay, now we've narrowed it down. The pregnant vegan yoga instructor. Well, guess what? You've eliminated a lot of people, but you've got your exact avatar right there."
And you would say, so some people would say, well, Vincent, that's just way too niche. There may be like only 5,000 people in the world that fit that niche. What do you tell them then? Maybe,
but it's not okay. Example of what we're doing, right? We just launched last week a new level to our membership. It's $9 a month. The way I joke is like, you spent more for a bad burrito last week than that. So you're not going to tell me it's money that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And it's a weekly, in-depth video lesson that's no more than 20 minutes, giving you homework and instruction, step-by-step detail. 20 minutes. So what are the two excuses people have? You probably hear it all the time. Don't have the time, don't have the money.
Yeah.
So I went into it saying, these are the problems.
Yeah.
These are what stops people. I'm going to eliminate their problems before they even get there, or excuses. You're going to do it or you're not going to do it, right?
Yes, exactly.
So look at mine, which is more of a broader niche, entrepreneurship, freedom.
Yeah.
Even still, $9 a month. What do people want to make? Generally, they'll tell me I want to make $10,000 a month recurring income. If I can make $10,000 a month recurring income, then I could do what I want, right?
Yeah.
Not suspiciously, $9 a month at 1,000 people is $9,000 a month, $100,000 a year, right? To do exactly what you want to do, you need 1,000 people to do that. It's exactly Kevin Kelly's 1,000 raving fans, 1,000 true fans.
Yeah, and also Pat Flynn has a book, Super Fans. He talked about you don't need thousands and thousands.
No.
Yeah.
So I am completely convinced. 15 years ago, I wasn't. When people, I would say, like, you can't just do whatever you want to do. You've got to find a problem and solve it. Right? I believe in that too. But in the world of this custom niche world, you could be a Star Wars fan and start a community or a membership around, this aspect of Star Wars, right? You could be an Indianapolis Colts fan and do a specific type of content or podcast on them. You go down. The example that just blew me away was a friend told me about a woman that has a doodler membership community. I'm not talking about professional doodlers. I'm talking about you turning over a notepad and doodling because you like to doodle. That's a membership. Okay.
Wow.
It's $5 a month, and she has thousands of people in it.
That works.
If that doesn't tell you that you can create whatever you want, all you need are a handful of people in your specific niche. And here's the deal. You have no competition because everybody's building their own micro niches.
Yes.
So I created my own. I don't need that many.
Yeah.
But if 2,000, I can see it. There's 2,000 people in this new thing in a year or two, right? Well, now if I want to do coaching, I have 2,000 people to say, hey, I got 4 spots this week.
Yeah.
X amount of money.
Yeah.
Okay, I pulled information from this $9 membership and I created this course for $50. If I'm spending $9 a month, Ryan, I'm not going to balk at a coaching call. I'm not going to balk at buying a course.
Yeah, exactly.
Create your own ecosystem, your own stadium, and just do your thing. Who's my competition? Nobody. I've created my own thing. That's why I love stadiums, especially sports. It's like baseball. You look at old stadiums, everyone's different. Now it's a little more the same. Create your own. So that's what I do. Help people create their own stadium. And then you don't have to worry about competition because the more unique you can be to yourself and your audience and your passion, you're going to own that. You're going to own that industry.
Love it. Okay, so for your cousin, we've got the content down. So the connections. What would you tell him to do for building those relationships, and who's he building relationships with?
Yeah, great question. So it's all been built for me around a thing called we might have talked about it last time, called The Hour of Giving.
Mm.
And what I learned years ago was, I was in the selfish side of business, like a lot of people are. I'd reach out to get this connection, or I'd reach out to get on this show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And what I realized was I'm kind of doing this for my own selfish reasons, right? And I didn't really like that, and it doesn't really come across that well. I didn't do it egregiously, but I knew what my intentions were, and it wasn't great. But then I'd see people that would just reach out to me just to check in. Mm-hmm. I'd see people that would connect me to somebody else just to do it.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about how I thought about those people. I said, those are the people that I praise. And I want to do it for them.
Yeah.
So I started doing, instead of waking up and doing a journal of here's what I'm going to get done, or here's, the 8 tasks I'm going to do, I just said, I'm going to take an hour and I'm just going to reach out to people and I'm going to check in on them. I'm going to connect people together. I'm going to leave reviews. I'm going to do all the things that I would want for myself.
Yeah.
First for others.
Yes.
That was life-changing to do. Because all of a sudden, I'm not even joking, I would reach out and they'd be like, oh, I was just thinking about you. You wrote a book, right? Oh, can I have you on my podcast? I'm like, sure.
You didn't even ask them.
Didn't even ask them.
That's awesome.
I need to introduce you to this person. Oh, I'm so glad you reached out to me. If I could write a book called I'm So Glad You Reached Out to Me, because I'm telling you, there's 6 figures of income beyond that has happened just from people saying that.
Wow.
My friend needs you to speak at their conference. Because what you can do at that point is say, like, I have this idea to write content on the New York Jets.
Yeah.
Can I run an idea by you? I do it all the time. Can I get feedback? I don't ask for anything. I don't ask for sales.
Yeah.
They go, oh, I know somebody that works in the front office.
Yeah.
Or somebody else did this. You could try that. So that's what I do with connection.
That's awesome.
And there's very few asks. There's very few, can you do this for me? When you do this, you collaborate and you do it for each other without even thinking about it.
Another thing I would tell your cousin too that I've learned it's been helpful for me, if people think I got to do content and connections, well, you can actually blend those two together. So if you have a podcast, let's say I'm your cousin, I would be thinking about who I could invite on the show. Think strategically. People that radio hosts that are even think big. Invite the coach, invite players from the Jets onto your show, because then it's not about you're giving them access to your stage, and that's a big deal. And even if unless they're like Tony Robbins, a lot of people are going to say yes to being on a podcast. And then you're offering, then you're giving, you're starting from the service mindset. And then if the conversation goes well at the end, like, hey, let me tell you about what I'm doing, I'm excited about. If you feel that connection, you want to go into more of a, hey, this is something I've been thinking about, you want to help me, you can, but you literally just build that relationship and it'll end up going to cool places.
Totally. And exactly. And if you think of it this way, right? I'm cool today, don't need anything today. 3 years from now, something's good's going to happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Just that mindset of, even that interview, I wouldn't even ask anything that day. Wouldn't. But I'd keep in touch. Yeah. And I'd send a thank you note. And then 2 months later, I would check and see how they're doing. This is not even to get anything. You're just doing what you should be doing. You write 6 months later, connect them to somebody else to be on another show. A year from now, hey, do you know anybody that can help me? Like, oh, I've been thinking about, I have this person. It's wild how it, like, that's, even I had a quest to shoot in every stadium in the country when I was doing photography. This is where it first started. Yeah. I just connected with all the team photographers. That's what I did. While everybody else was shooting in their local venue, I was like, who's the Giants team photographer? And I would reach out and then I would connect them to somebody else. And I would know somebody in that town and I would bring them together. Yeah. Or I started getting into the podcast world. I'm like, you need to interview this person. They're the team photographer for your city, team in your city. Make all these connections. So whenever it was time to go to Candlestick Park, I'd be like, hey, Mike Zagaris, who's an internationally known photographer who literally was told to start being a photographer by Eric Clapton.
Really?
He was doing photography in the late 60s, doing music photography, and just for fun. And Clapton looked at his his negatives. He's like, dude, you should do this for a living. He's like, really? He goes, oh, you're better than these other guys. That's how he got started. That's so awesome. I connect with Z, is his nickname. And no joke, this is how it worked. The Niners were playing in the playoffs. It was Colin Kaepernick's last playoff victory. And I'm like, I wanted to shoot in Carolina. I hadn't been to the stadium. I emailed him after meeting him the year before, connecting for a couple of years. I said, hey, you need another photographer for the playoff game? He goes, come on down. So he got me a press pass. I rode the team bus stayed in a team hotel,
Yeah.
went on all access sidelines when I didn't even work for the Niners or the Panthers.
So cool.
That was wealth of connection stuff. But the more
Oh,
I
man.
connected with the team photographers, the more I knew everybody. And the more, anytime I wanted a door opened, I could just ask for it.
That's so
that's
good.
where the concept originally came from.
Wow. Man. Okay. I want to know, how can people find your new membership and where can it, because I think this is going to be so worth it to them to jump in there and find their life freedom.
Yeah. TotalLifeFreedom.com is the website. The membership is called Total Life Freedom School. And I can send you a direct link if you want. We did it in a way where Ryan Holiday talked about this. He's like, what's the cheapest you can create something and still stay in business? And I read that 6 years ago in Perennial Seller, and I was like, that's kind of an odd question. But he talked about why that made sense. So we had built a higher tier mastermind, a higher price. We had built a mid-level community. So the idea of this was, how can we do something so reasonably priced that it's kind of a no-brainer? That was so it wasn't, people like, oh, you should charge more for this. I don't care. I want to get as many people in this level as possible so we can start teaching this stuff. But what I learned in the first week of launch, Ryan, which is crazy, is, we had a podcast and people listen and they don't listen and this and that, but I never really got a whole lot of action taken from it, right? We do a $9 membership. And then we looked at the stats after a week. The majority of the people that signed up watched the video, which I was stunned by. Almost all of them watched till the end, 16-minute video, and only one watched until like about a minute left. And I said, the only difference is they paid for something. So I'm not trying to sell your audience here. It was a really interesting thing where we all give away content for free. You're doing it and it's valuable to do it. But what I learned is, even at a low price, just having some buy-in had people take action. And as content creators, what do we want to do? We want people to take action. We want people to do things, to take action and accomplish things. So I'm like, I'm unabashed and like, people should do this because I can't imagine why you wouldn't. So it's the first thing in my life in business, and I'm like, I have no problem telling anybody it's $9. Right. And if people give me a hard time about it, like, okay, that's your thing. But as I watch you walk away with that Starbucks, I'm like, we know what the decision is.
Exactly.
So it's a weekly. So it's essentially a step-by-step weekly video lesson course, how to do exactly what we're talking about. And I talk about, 5 levels. Level 1 is the employee that wants to do more, not the employee that wants to stay being an employee. They want to be in the entrepreneurial space. Yeah. Level 2 is the service-based business owner. I don't even call it entrepreneur because that's where we were at. We owned a business. We created a business. And what we really did was create a job. It was great. It got us away from our job. But all the assignments fell on me and my wife. And if I got hurt, right, somebody's got to cover it. Now it makes it worse. Level 2 to level 3 is the online recurring income entrepreneur. Now you're taking, instead of one-to-one, you're going one-to-many. And then you go to level 4, which is you take that one thing, you freed up time, you freed up money, and now you're building the stadium. Now you're taking this level and you're building new ones to it. And that leads you to, unlimited income opportunities. Yeah. Freedom and time, and doing and living the life that you want.
Yes. That's because you are now freed up. If an opportunity comes by that you want to take advantage of, you have that mental space, you have the time to do it if you feel called to do that.
100%. One that was really impactful for me, remember Warren Buffett and Bill Gates they were on an interview one time, I think with Charlie Rose, and the difference between the two, Bill Gates had his schedule and everything was scheduled out every day, every hour. And I know entrepreneurs like that, and I never related to that. That sounded like prison to me, but they loved it. And then he laughed. He said, Warren, tell him about your schedule. And he pulls out his notepad from the back of his pants and he opens it up, and there's hardly anything in it. And he said this, that it really changed my mindset. He goes, I figured a while ago that the most valuable thing I can give people is my time. And by keeping that time open, I'm able to do things the way I wouldn't be able to do if I was scheduled. So the best thing I could do is leave my schedule open so I'm there for people. So when people schedule me for time and they go, hey, here's my calendar for next Thursday at 3, I'm like, you're out of your mind. Like next Thursday, I could be going to the beach with my family. There's no way I'm cutting that up for a random call. So what I will say is, hey, are you free now? And they almost always go, yeah. Like, how about we just do it now and not wait So that's how I do it. So we have a call, let's go do it. And then we'll move on. But I'm not scheduling it weeks in advance because that's what your Calendly says. I'm like, no, today I'm free, so I'll talk. But I'm not killing a day in 3 weeks just because that's what your calendar is on there.
So good. Love it. So guys, go to totallifefreedom.com. Link will be in the show notes. Vincent, this is awesome. I appreciate this. You're always welcome back.
Anytime. I love our conversations. I feel like we can keep going and going, but
for sure.
There's a time limit.
Talk more sports too at some point, but
if you ever want to do just a sports-based call and you just fire questions about experiences, I'm open for it.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
Thank you, man. Okay, bye.
You've been listening to Streams of Income with self-help author Ryan Rieger. From right here in the Dallas Metroplex, Ryan teaches several entrepreneurial courses and group coaching programs to students all over the world. Be sure to listen next week at the same time for Streams of Income with Ryan Rieger.